Hi there. In this week's edition of The Wrap, we're looking at the great Facebook outage and what it means, what you need to know from some important judiciary news this week, and why you really should not keep a pet tiger in your backyard.
Welcome to The Wrap, your weekly update of empowering and easy to understand news brought to you by Verashni Pillay and the explain.co.za team. Our take.
Phansi Facebook Phansi. On Monday, some 3.6 billion people around the globe faced a modern day catastrophe. The internet was broken. Okay, maybe not the whole internet, but its equivalent, Facebook, which is pretty much synonymous with the internet in many Asian countries. Now, the mega social media platform, which includes Instagram and WhatsApp, had a huge technical oopsie at its headquarters in California in the US, and this resulted in a global outage that lasted about 6 hours, which was from about 5:40 p.m. our time in South Africa. Now, why did it happen? According to experts, it was akin to Facebook basically falling off the internet's map. Your browser did not have the directions it needed to get to Facebook. Now, 6 hours might sound like a short amount of time, but the outage had devastating effects on those who rely on these social media platforms for their livelihoods. As one startup owner put it may not sound like a lot to others, but missing out on 4 or 5 hours of sales could be the difference between paying the electricity bill or the rent for the month. As for Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, he lost $7 billion. Now, not a huge amount for someone who has a net worth of over $100 billion, but a bit of a blow nonetheless. Meanwhile, WhatsApp rivals Telegram and Signal reported a sharp increase in new users. Twitter even warmly welcomed literally everyone, which prompted hilarious memes. Our favorites include, with Instagram down, influencers are going to have to go door to door, making teenage girls feel shit about themselves, and more like the social not work. Besides forcing us to confront our relationship with social media, the outage came on the back of mounting difficulties for the company. Last week, we told you how a whistleblower blew the lid on Facebook's dirty tricks to prioritize profits over people's safety in the Wall Street Journal. This week, she revealed her identity. Frances Hogan, a 37-year-old data scientist who worked on the company's civic integrity team and was shocked at what she saw. In an interview with CBS, she said Facebook manipulated its algorithms to sometimes show more negative content to keep users on the site longer, and we wonder why our public discourse has become so much more divisive. She also said Facebook intends to target younger users to stay relevant and to survive. Pretty hectic stuff. Her revelation that the company buried research about Instagram's harmful effects on teens' mental health has prompted a subcommittee hearing last week in the US Senate, and they slammed Facebook's safety chief for failing to protect children. And that's not where the lawmakers are stopping. Facebook is also facing an upcoming landmark antitrust case from the US's Federal Trade Commission. Now, what is the Federal Trade Commission? It's a bit like our Competition Commission here in South Africa. They want to force Facebook to restructure or sell off its assets, including Instagram and WhatsApp. It's worth noting that these were independently successful companies that posed a threat to Facebook and that they bought out to squash the competition. The larger issue here is whether Facebook owners should be allowed to control so much of the internet, which practically half the world is reliant on. We agree with US lawmakers on this one. It's time to break them up.
The big story.
What is going on with the Judicial Service Commission? The JSC is in charge of interviewing potential judges for all South Africa's courts, a pretty important job. They then hand their recommendation to the president to make his final choice. The JSC is made up of 23 commissioners, and these include lawyers, politicians, judges, and a single academic. Now, our all-important constitutional court is in a bad place. As we told you last week, it has way too many vacancies on its 11-member bench. Relying on acting justices has really imperiled its work. Now, the JSC ran interviews in April to fill 2 of the 5 upcoming vacancies on the bench, but the process was disastrous. Some politicians used it to settle political scores. An outgoing Chief Justice, Mogoeng, as the JSC chair, was criticized for failing to protect potential justices and the judges being interviewed. Now, the JSC were forced to rerun the interviews this week thanks to legal action by civil society body, the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. This time round, the interviews were much smoother under Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who is one of the contenders to take over from Mogoeng. But the process was still not without criticism. Here are the main ones. Firstly, the 5 recommendations for judges that were referred to Cyril Ramaphosa were no different from the first round of interviews. Now look, they're all excellent candidates, so there's nothing to worry about here, but political commentator Kaya Sitole told News24 that he felt the JSE was trying to send a political statement by saying that there was nothing wrong with their first process by doing the same judges again as their recommendations. Secondly, after having her reputation seriously impugned the first time round, Judge Daya Pillay withdrew from the interviews. The first time round, she was badgered by EFF leader Julius Malema about her friendship with Minister of Public Enterprises Pravin Gordhan, and this was part of the EFF's ongoing beef with Gordhan and nothing to do with her competency as a judge. And this is really sad. The more qualified women of colour candidates, the better. The issue should have been handled better, and now she's completely out of the running. And lastly, and quite seriously, two possible candidates, Judge David Unterhalter and Advocate Alan Dodson, were questioned by Malema and Advocate Dali Mpofu, who was there in his capacity as a representative of the Advocates Bar, about their fitness for the court as white men. Now look, It explained we're all for transformation, but the questions were bizarre given that the Constitution clearly states that the judiciary must broadly reflect the demographics of South Africa in terms of race. And there are no white men currently on the bench, so there is a spot for one of them at least. It's also petty considering the outstanding role that retired justices like Edwin Cameron and others, who happen to be white men, have played in progressing our democracy with landmark judgments, particularly in favour of the black majority. So we think the JSE must clean up its act. Dare we suggest the composition of its members need to be reassessed? Less politicians and more retired judges, maybe.
The briefs.
One step closer to stabilizing our top court. In other judiciary news, the President has finalized the list of candidates to take over from Mogoeng after public nominations were accepted for the first time in a greater bid towards transparency. President Ramaphosa announced 8 candidates for the Constitutional Court Chief Justice based on public recommendations. This included controversial figures like Judge President John Hlophe and Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane. They've both been in the news for all the wrong reasons, but don't stress, there's practically zero chance the two of them will make it. In fact, Justice Mandise Maya is considered the forerunner, and she will be the first woman in the position if she does get it. With tensions emerging on the bench, Maya has a reputation for bridging divides. She also has been praised for the way the Supreme Court of Appeal under her leadership seamlessly transitioned to virtual court hearings when the pandemic hit, and for its efficiency in dealing with its role and delivering judgments, the Sunday Times reported. These are all skills that our top court sorely needs. You're from Africa? Do you have lions in your backyard? We've all heard the cliche, even if we have not directly been asked that question, and we probably responded by seeing our own brains during the resulting eye roll. But a family in Boksburg on Gauteng's East Rand can, however, answer yes to that question, sort of. A creche owner spotted a tiger peeking over their wall last week and later discovered their neighbors had 2 of the big wild cats. That's terrifying, especially when you're meant to keep other people's children safe. It turns out this isn't illegal. Animal welfare organization 4 Paws told Times Live that tigers have very little protection under South African law, despite being considered an endangered species. This is particularly true in Gauteng, where such cases of private keeping are prevalent. Prevalent? WTF, guys. It seems all you need to do if you fancy a pet tiger is to apply for a permit with the Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, Nature Conservation, as the South African reported. Oh, and make sure your garden is big enough and secured. But in case you need it said, please don't keep a tiger in your backyard. It's unethical, unsafe, and puts a rare species at even greater risk. And we really don't want the Americans to be right. You may not have noticed, but lately the economy has been behaving pretty well. South African Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago, in his monetary policy review on Tuesday, said the country is expecting an economic boom, largely driven by commodities, and this has resulted in tax overruns, which basically means more cash in the state's purse, as well as stronger GDP growth over the past year. But he said the government should not get too excited by these temporary gains and enter into commitments that it cannot fund at a later stage. It's a bit like you getting a temporary cash windfall. You wouldn't change your entire budget around it, we hope. Commodity prices fluctuate, so there's no way to say that this gain is sustainable. We'll hear more about the government's financial standing in the medium-term budget policy statement set to be presented by the new Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana on the 4th of November. Now, we're betting on Godongwana to do the right things. He's already saying them and getting people excited about our economic prospects. During the Sunday Times Investment Summit last week, he touched on 5 key priority areas: energy security outside of Eskom, broadband spectrum, the green revolution, our logistics issues, and opening more space to make it easy to do business in Mzansi. Busi Mavuso, who is the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa, sang his praises in Business Day. We're optimistically cautious. After all, previous Finance Minister Tito Mboweni also made all the right noises, but was ultimately frustrated by the politics of the ruling party. Godongwana, however, has more clout in the ANC. Let's hope that his clear-sightedness prevails.
Adulting.
The DA's divisive Phoenix poster. The Democratic Alliance is like that drunk uncle that always says inappropriate things at family events and is too stubborn to stop. This time, the Blue Party put up posters in Phoenix, a predominantly Indian suburb in KwaZulu-Natal, which read, "The ANC called you racist and the DA called you heroes." It's deeply problematic. The posters are referencing the July unrest, which sparked looting and violence in some areas like Phoenix. Here, residents of Indian descent said that they were protecting their communities, but they were accused of inciting violence and, in some cases, killing black people. 36 deaths were reported in the area alone. Many are calling it a massacre. This is not heroic, it is criminal. The DA is choosing the stance as a tactic to win the community's votes by essentially sympathizing with them and completely disregarding the lives that were lost. The DA's KZN leader, Dean McPherson, said there was nothing factually incorrect about the statement. Party leader John Steenhuisen is also unapologetic about the posters, which are going to be erected across eThekwini, Daily Maverick reported, so the whole of Durban's going to see them. But some party members are on the other side of the fence, saying the posters are damaging to the DA's image and should be taken down, and that those who okayed the wording must be held to account. We're with them on this. The DA consistently fails to recognize the dynamics in South Africa. Divisive tactics like this will only set us back further. Read the room, DA. No more worrying about misplacing that pesky vaccination card. The Department of Health's COVID-19 vaccine certificate system is finally ready. The system links to your unique vaccination code, which is issued by the Electronic Vaccination Data System when you registered for a vaccination. You will then receive a unique QR code via SMS or email, which when scanned will provide proof that you have been inoculated. It's only available to fully vaccinated adults, and it's crucial for traveling, attending gatherings, and as the domestic economy opens up, accessing more services. All you need is your identity number, your vaccination code, and the cell phone number you used to register, and you can go to the website to do so. If you don't have your code anymore, there is a way for you to get it, so check the website for more details. The Calabash Soccer Stadium near Soweto is going to be lit on Tuesday. The South African Football Association, SAFA, has given fans the green light to return to the FNB Stadium, as it's officially known. And they're going to be watching Bafana play against Ethiopia in the Qatar 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifier next week. It's been a long 18 months since spectators could watch live sports matches in the country thanks to the pandemic, so fans are clearly very excited about this. Top officials believe football can play a major role in South Africa's ailing vaccination drive. Or people just are not going to get vaccinated, and authorities don't have a firm handle on the culture or beliefs driving this hesitancy. Watching your favorite team live for free could be the incentive that people need. SAFA is giving away 50% of Tuesday's tickets for free, but only fully vaccinated fans qualify, though it's not clear whether this means those who've only had one jab make the cut, and SAFA has not yet clarified this. But still, it's good news. The body is also insisting its own officials be vaccinated by 30th of October before taking part in events. The hugely popular Soweto derby between Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs will also be used to encourage mass vaccination. SAFA is even set on engaging taxi associations so that taxi drivers who take fans to the stadiums will also be vaccinated. This is the grassroots push we need. Will South Africans finally be allowed into England again? You probably know the answer by the time you read this. The Guardian reported that an official announcement about changes to the country's controversial red list travel system was due sometime on Thursday. That's today. The much-criticized approach categorizes countries based on their COVID-19 risk level. In South Africa's case, it seemed to ignore the science, and by Monday we were still on the red list. But, following consultations with Ramaphosa, Reuters reported that UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson would open up travel for fully vaccinated individuals from South Africa, Brazil, Mexico and Indonesia, who will no longer have to fork out to quarantine in a UK hotel, which is depressing and extremely expensive. Fully vaccinated is the key phrase here, guys. It also applies to UK citizens. Returning travellers must be fully vaccinated and don't need a pre-departure test, a test 8 days after getting back, or to enter a 10-day self-isolation period. Look out for the official announcement and make your plans. Over the weekend, a global consortium of more than 600 journalists released the Pandora Papers. It's a follow-up to 2016's Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers in 2017, and it's the biggest trove of financial accounts to date. It exposes countless business people, celebrities, and just, well, really rich folks who have stashed large amounts of money and assets in offshore accounts or tax havens. Why? It's all about tax evasion and money laundering. Money that should be taxed and invested in creating better democracies is instead being hoarded. The investigations were carried out by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the ICIJ, whose members dug through files and papers to get the dirt. Thankfully, no South African features. We have enough of our own Gupta state capture problems, please. But Zimbabwean businessman Billy Rautenbach and Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta are among those named. Others include Russian President Vladimir Putin, as well as musicians Elton John, Ringo Starr, and Shakira. Her hips don't lie, but apparently her bank statements do. Now, the trove contains 11.9 million files leaked from a total of 14 offshore service providers, totaling 2.94 terabytes of information, The Guardian reported. We're grateful to have committed data and investigative journalists willing to roll up their sleeves and dive into people's dirty dealings.
That's it from us at The Wrap, an award-winning product of Explain.co.za, simple news summaries for busy people. The Wrap is sponsored by Explain's agency division. We specialize in content marketing for purpose-driven organizations, often with a pan-African reach. Mail info@explain.co.za for a quote. Remember to share the love, tell your friends to sign up for updates at explain.co.za/subscribe. Till next time, goodbye from the team.